guys. So here we are again, ready to lay out the dash tube for this truck. Now, being an older truck, the windshield is pretty close to the front of the dash right here, so it's not going to take a lot of fitment. Some of your more modern vehicles, they have that cab forward design where your windshield will go way up there and you'll have a pretty long span to cover before you even get to it. So I'm kind of lucky there. I'm gonna take a measurement from here to that side. I'm going to draw it on my shop floor, and I'm going to make my dash tube fit there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come from my floor tubes here up to my dash tube. I'm going to use the tube as a splitter, and then from that point I can run my A-pillar up, and it simplifies everything, and back, and that's how we're going to set it up. And we're going to go ahead and draw it on the shop floor. 63 inches. One of the reasons we always keep a pre-bent tube around is laying out things like this, right? All right, so once I've found the center of my tube and I know where the center of my dash is, I've got it drawn out here. I've had this pre-bent tube for 20 years, and I'll tell you what, this is how it goes, right here. What it does is it tells me where my true bend actually begins. You can see a line on this tube. That's part of the original bend from 20 years ago. So I don't even require marks on this thing. I can see where a bend actually begins. Then I'm going to gauge out approximately where I want this bend to carry to the end of the dash right here. That's my target point. It's an angle I'll have to figure out, but I can figure out that in a minute. I'll show you. So what I can do is I can put a mark right here where my true bend actually begins. And then all I need to do is have a measurement from here to here, and I can mirror that on this side. Symmetry. About 135 degrees is what I'm looking for. Now that I've got a satisfactory bend in the other end, this is how you set it up in your bender to bend that end. And so you don't end up with a bend that looks like this, you want them on the same plane. So basically you're going to kind of eyeball it. Now some guys want to use an angle gauge on here, try to make everything perfect, but then there are numerous variables in there that you're going to have to contend with, like is your floor level, things like that. What's worked for me is basically using the horizon theory, right? You're going to look across the horizon of this die, and you're going to match the horizon of this tube up with that. So, and then you're going to cinch it up. With a hydraulic bender, it's a little bit easier. As you can see, it'll want to turn fairly easily, but I can lock it in place with the hydraulics right here. Once I've done that, I will double check it, and then I will bend it out. So, we're going to get kind of close right here. I've already lined it up here so I know where I'm at, all right? So I'm just gonna bump it until I get tension. Look, it's already locked in place, so I'll back it off a little bit, all right? Then I'm gonna come back here and I'm gonna look across the bend, all right? And I'm gonna line up the horizon of the bend and the tube with the horizon of my die. Not the bender, but the die, since the die is what's actually doing the bending. And that's right on the money. Now, I've already gotten the position on here, so I'm just gonna bend it to that. All right, you guys, I've leveled out the truck, and now I've leveled out the dash tube that I bent up a little bit earlier. A couple of 1/4-inch shims, just cut these to keep the tube away from the windshield. And then I've shimmed it here so that it's level. All right, that way at first appearance it looks level and all of that. You don't want your roll cage anywhere near the glass. That way if the steel moves or any of that, that way you don't shatter your windshield. That'd be a terrible thing to have happen. So let's try to avoid that by setting ourselves up. Now I already fit that tube. I wanted to make sure that my idea was gonna work. Now I'm gonna start on this tube over here and I'm gonna show you guys how I did that. All right, and one thing to keep in mind, most other vehicles, the top is not removable like this. You either have to cut the top off or you drop the roll cage through the bottom to actually do the welding 360 degrees all the way across the top. Now I'm looking and I can see the previous cage in here was welded in place. They actually left burn marks right here. So I'm gonna try and clean those up before I do my roll cage. But this entire roof is removable on this truck. You can look right here. The whole thing comes off all the way to the windshield. I won't have to cut it off. I will remove this and 360 degree this cage. That means I can also get the cage tied up against this, as tight as I can get it. Because when I'm done, the chassis and the cab are all gonna be one piece. They will not move against each other like when the cab is usually on rubber bushings. That's not gonna be the case with this thing anymore. Earlier I talked about bending up the dash tube, and I'll tell you, the first tube I bent up right here, I installed it in the truck, and I ended up just not being satisfied with the layout of this particular tube. So like I've mentioned before, sometimes you have to know when to say that's junk and throw it away. So that's what I'm doing right now. I cut this tube out. It was not welded in. That's why I only tack things together in case you need to make a change. So what I did is I just bent up another tube, and I've already fit this tube in the truck, and it fits more the way that I'm looking for. It's more aesthetically pleasing. Structural integrity and all of that is about the same. But it's going to lay out the dash area just a little bit differently, and in my opinion, a little bit better. So like I said, you can't be afraid to stop. It might have been a couple hours of hard work that you put in, doesn't matter, okay? Sometimes you gotta know when, and you just cut that out. So that's what I've done here. Now we're gonna continue on. This tube, hopefully I can find a use for it later on, or uses for the bins and the other pieces later on. Corner gussets, things like that. So it's not a total loss, but it is a bit of a length of tube that's wasted. So gotta know when.